Hello and welcome to day 8 of our 12 vibrational days of Christmas. And today the title of this particular webinar is Working with Crystal Antidotes with myself, Brian Parsons. So I suppose the first question is, what is a crystal antidote? Well, a crystal antidote is a situation where you're bringing 2 or 3 crystals together to create a particular vibrational effect or create a particular vibrational healing. So instead of trying to identify the single crystal that works in that particular area and is effective, you're actually bringing together 2 or 3, and the majority of crystal antidotes that I've discovered are 3 crystals, although there are a few that actually work with 2 crystals, together to produce this energetic shift or this healing. And there are, as we shall see, a number of advantages to working with crystal antidotes. Although the main healing traditions within crystal therapy and healing at the moment are finding the right specific stone for an issue. Now, crystal antidotes is not a new concept. If you go back to, I think it's the 1970s, late 70s or early 80s, you've got Guru Das's book, Gem Elixirs and Essences, and in there he was bringing together a number of different crystals which, when worked with together, used in combination, produce a specific energetic and healing shift. More recently, you've got people like Twin Trees in their books. They're creating a specific jewellery out of crystals which, when brought together, create a combined energy that creates a shift. But my journey with crystal antidotes first started from Dorothy Roeder's book, Crystal Co-Creators. Because in that book, towards the end, she actually lists a number of different crystal combinations, say 2, 3 or 4 different crystals, which when brought together create a specific shift. In fact, the first crystal antidote that I really started working with, and I still use today and mention, comes from her book, Crystal Co-Creators, and it is the crystal antidote for fear, which is tanzanite, amethyst and kunzite. And even now I haven't found a better combination for handling fear, for turning it around, which is why I still use that particular one. And I always say this is where it's sourced. It was sourced from Dorothy Roeder's book, Crystal Co-Creators. And in her book, she lists lots of different issues that can be worked with crystal combinations, and lots of different specific effects that can be used. Now, myself in particular, I followed up on the issues side of things, because I find that crystal antidotes are very good, very effective for taking what I call a negative energy or an energetic block in our subtle anatomy and transforming it into an energy flow of positive energy. So they are very, very effective at working with limitation and negativity. Although when we use the word negativity, all energy is appropriate within a certain situation. So for example, fear can hold you back, but at the same time, if you need to run away, fear is a great motivator. So a lot of these things are appropriate to certain situations, inappropriate in others. And at this point, what I'd like to say is I've set up on the Vibrational Doorways website a specific page, Crystal Antidotes webinar, where I'll also be listing and showing pictures for the crystal antidotes that I'll be talking about in this particular webinar, so that you've got an extra resource, and hopefully you'll be able to see the crystals and it'll make it easier for you to work with them. And also there'll be some ideas of the different layouts I'll be referring to. They'll all be on that particular page. So it's on www.vibrationaldoorways.com. It'll be under Crystal Antidotes, the Crystal Antidotes category, and the page will be Crystal Antidote Webinar. So as you listen to this webinar, you can always go to that web page or later on, and there will be additional information there, or supporting information there. So, a good question will be, well, why did Brian, all those years ago, well, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago now, get really excited about crystal antidotes? Or their potential? Well, this can be answered in a number of different ways. So the first thing that got me really excited was, let's say that you read in a crystal book that there is a crystal that is perfect for the issue that you are suffering from, that is limiting you. So you go onto the web, you go to your local crystal shop and ask for this crystal, or look at it on the web, and it's either very, very rare and you can't get hold of it, or it's very, very expensive, even if you can get hold of it. And that's one of the problems with crystal therapy at the moment, crystal healing, in that we're tied to the crystal Bibles, and they are referring to crystals and minerals that are very, very rare and very, very expensive if you can get hold of them. Crystal Antidotes, as I practice it, started with the premise, okay, if I can't get hold of the rare and expensive crystal, can I create or find a vibration, a combined vibration, using crystals that I can get easily, that I can find, which are affordable? And although recently some of the more expensive and rarer crystals have flowed in to the newer crystal antidotes, for the ones that were created first, the ones that were created to help with the meridian system and to help with the chakra system, that remained true, in that the crystals that are used in those combinations are fairly easy to find and in general will not break the bank. So that's a really cool thing, because if you think about it, it means that you can go out there and find things that will help you easily to fairly easily. And that's what I like about crystal antidotes, and was something that was in a sense programmed into me by Sue and Simon Lilly, my teachers at ICGT, is that to be effective, you work with what is available. You don't dream about that mythical crystal vibration that you will never obtain. Yeah, it's find ways of working with the stuff that you can get hold of. So that's first strength with crystal antidotes, especially for the chakras, the meridians. They use crystals that it's easy to get hold of. And also a spin-off advantage is that, for example, if you have a piece of sodalite, you have a piece of red jasper, or you have a piece of Heliod or whatever, pyrite, then a few of those stones crop up in different antidotes. So once you've got one, it could actually end up in 4 different antidotes, because we're talking about combinations here. So one investment as a pyrite may actually help you to achieve 4 or 5 different antidotes. So it's not always about buying 3 new crystals for an antidote. 1 stone will be reused, you'll discover. Now, the other thing that I love about crystal antidotes is, and I've said this already, they transform a negative, limiting energy into a positive. So when you talk about the fear antidote, like I said, tanzanite, amethyst and kunzite, your natural inclination is to think, oh, well, I have to relive the fear. You don't. You don't have to relive the fear, you don't have to relive the worry or the anxiety. Okay, it targets a negative, but you don't have to feel the negative energy, because the crystals will be transforming that energy for you. So overall, it can be a very relaxing, safe, empowering process, which is another great thing about crystal antidotes. They help you release the limitation, but the releasing does not mean that you have to relive the experience. You don't have to access the emotion to clear it. The crystals will do that for you. Which then brings us on to one of the handicaps is that we use the negative word to define what the antidote does. So, the fear antidote, the worry anxiety antidote. Okay. So, because we're using language here, and it's the best language to define what that antidote does. But if you are someone who does work with clients, then you kind of have to be a little bit careful, because what did you put on me? Well, I used fear to begin with, and then we used the worry anxiety antidote, and then we used the sexual indecision antidote. So their natural inclination is to go, what do you mean? I'm afraid, I'm anxious, and I've got all these sexual indecisive problems. Basically, the name on the tin tells you exactly what's going on. But when working with other people, I've discovered you just got to be a little bit careful in terms of how you define these things. But then that's the other strength, is that if you use some technique like muscle testing or some technique like dowsing, and that antidote comes up, then kind of like the territory you're working with. And when I've taught this, the technique of crystal antidotes to people, and they come up in their therapeutic practice, they've said that's a really amazing strength, because the antidotes that come up, and if they know something about the client's history, are spot on, or if they've got the person walking in the door, and worry anxiety comes up, and they say to the person, are you somebody who's very anxious? And they'll go, well, how did you know? So the crystals in the antidotes, when they appear in the client session, are very good at targeting the issue, but also telling you what the issue is. And just as an aside here, antidotes can be just as useful for you as the therapist as it is for the client that you're working on. An extreme example here, but one of my students was working on somebody who had kidney cancer. And if anyone knows anything about Chinese medicine, they'll know that the kidneys is associated with our core vitality, our core energy, but it can also be associated with the limitation of fear itself. So it's probably correct to say that this individual with kidney cancer was very, very afraid of what was happening to him. But the therapists themselves was also picking up on the fear, so they were afraid of whether they could help somebody with kidney cancer. So there was like a general fear. There was a fear in the client and there was a fear in the therapist. So we had a chat about it, and I was saying, well, for that person, check to see if the crystal antidote for fear would be appropriate. And it was. But then I also said to this therapist, I have a feeling that is as appropriate for you as it is for them. Because if your attitude towards that person, your client, is coming from fear, then you're not going to be able to hold a steady healing space for them. So you need to use the antidote on you as much as them. And doing so, that will be able to really stabilize the energies, and you can do some good work, which is exactly what happened. The antidote was as beneficial for the therapist as it was for their client. And that's something that takes us into another advantage, is that they are so easy to use and integrate, not just in terms of a therapist-client situation, but if you're going to an interview and you are anxious, then the anxiety antidote, the worrying anxiety antidote, in your pocket, helps to turn that situation around. And if you go on to work with me or study anything to do with energy astrology, you'll know that the 12 signs of the zodiac, according to the German astrologer Reinhold Ebertin, link to the 12 meridians. The 12 meridians can be linked to issues based on John Diamond's approach to kinesiology. So therefore, there is an issue related to a meridian which is related to a zodiac sign. So, those people with Aries, their core issue, well, there's two, but one of their core issues is fear. Yeah. So, the crystal antidote for your typical Aries that helps them on a day-to-day basis is the fear antidote. If we were to look at somebody like Libra, that's linked to the heart protector meridian, which is linked to the issue of regret. So the Librans, using the regret antidote really helps them. Okay? And this is the key one for me. I'm Virgo. I've got 4 planets in Virgo. So Virgo links to large intestine links to the issue of guilt. Okay? So this is what I found, is that the guilt antidote for me just helps. And as you'll see, I'm putting this one particular one up on the page. Guilt antidote is charoite, malachite and citrine. And it doesn't have to be a natural citrine. You can actually use a cooked citrine. It works just as well. So basically having malachite, charoite and orange citrine in your pocket, cleansed obviously, cleansed on a regular basis. And if you don't know how to cleanse, then just holding them in your hand or in a tea strainer under cold water for 1 minute every day while you're using them will help to remove the yucky energies, any yucky energies. So for me, using the guilt antidote when I need it is brilliant, you know, because it helps to remove the negativity and the stuckness in my own energy field so I can start flowing again. So I'm taking the guilt and transforming it into self-worth. I'm taking an energy which is undermining my personality and creating flow so that I can move ahead and feel good about myself. Once again, that's another positive. So if you can work out the issues that undermine you, whether they're anxiety or guilt or regret, or let's say the feeling of being unloved or whatever, finding the crystal antidote, working with it, which we'll talk about in a minute, and having it there for when you need it, it can be a great boost to your life. So for example, I've got a friend, I've just told them about using the worry anxiety in the morning, because if anyone knows about the Chinese clock, you'll know that between 9 and 11, that's when the spleen meridian is in a very fragile state, and a lot of people plunge into worry anxiety in the mornings. So I've shown them the worry and anxiety antidote, which is on the webpage, and they're using it in the morning to help support their energy, and they're feeling a lot more confident and secure in themselves in terms of going forwards into the day. So this is a technique, crystal antidote isn't just a technique for therapists to bring into their therapy room, crystal therapists, vibrational therapists. It's also a technique which therapists can tell their clients about, so their clients can integrate it into their working day. And it's also something that people, just your ordinary people on the streets, can go, whoa, you know, if I find the right crystals, I use them on myself, makes me feel better, yeah? Because at the end of the day, it's our feelings, our emotional state influence our mind, and define whether we can or we cannot do something. Whether we go for that dream or we limit ourselves. Whether we allow fear or anxiety or regret to dominate our lives and limit our potential and what we want to achieve. So crystal antidotes are a really cool way of working with the core emotions within your personality, because we're all different. We've all got the emotions, but for some reasons, and you can track this through the astrological chart, certain emotions are more prominent in some people than others. So like I said, I have 4 planets in Virgo, therefore guilt is very, very programmed into me. I've also got 2 planets in Pisces. So the crystal antidote for sadness, because Pisces is all about joy versus sadness, is another godsend for me. Yeah, I've got friends who they're Geminis, so therefore unhappiness, crystal antidote for unhappiness is really cool for them. It helps to keep their energy moving forwards, because if you look at it from a Chinese medicine point of view, and the meridians, when the energy is flowing, a positive emotional state of feeling is created. But when the energy is blocked, there is not any flow or very little flow within a meridian. That, according to Chinese medicine, is when we start to experience the negative, the limiting side. So with any of the 12 meridians, there is a positive emotion, but also a negative emotion. So for Virgo stroke large intestine, the negative is guilt, the positive is self-worth. For the small intestine meridian, the negative is sadness, the positive is joy. And for the heart meridian, surprise, surprise, the positive is love, but the negative is anger. Yeah? So with the heart meridian, which is associated with Leo, they can be very loving, but if they feel that their love is blocked or not being returned, that's when they can go into anger mode. Yeah. So crystal antidote is probably one of the one of the things I'm most proud about discovering or enhancing, because it's a very, very simple technique and very effective. In fact, my crystal students report back to me time and again that they use the crystal antidotes on themselves, on their friends and family, on their clients, time and again, and they work. They're so simple. And something to also mention, because Sue Lilly with ICGT and lately Sue Keeping, who is a creative kinesiologist, and both of them are great friends of mine, have helped me to refine the process of crystal antidotes to ensure that the crystal antidotes actually do what they say they do, because you can channel something, you can discover something, but at the same time you kind of have to go through a process of making sure that what it does is what you think it does. But the crystal antidotes have been around 10 years plus now, and they've been tested and tried by so many people that we know that this is what they do. So that we know that it is a process, an energetic approach that holds water, that works, that provides benefit in the way that we expect. Okay, and for some people they are a godsend, because when you feel yourself limited by a negative emotion, limiting emotion like anxiety, if somebody comes along and says, oh, actually, there's a way you can tweak it so you don't feel this, it can be like being let out of prison. So now I'm going to talk about the different ways you can use them. And the simplest is you get your 12, not 12, what I'm talking about. You get your 3 crystals, sometimes 2, but 3, and you put them in your pocket. Or as Judy Hall might do, she put it in her side of her bra. Because as Judy Hall says, that basically she doesn't understand how men survive, because women have bras, and bras are great places to put things like crystals. Men, we have to put them in our pockets. But anyway, so you get your 3 crystals and you put it in a pocket. So you just have it in your auric field, okay? And that is the simplest thing you can do. I'm going to throw a couple of little caveats in here because it's something that I find quite interesting. So you take your 3 crystals and you put them in a pocket, and that creates a single vibration. Now, if I were to put in another crystal, that would change the effect of that particular crystal antidote. It's a bit like saying, okay, you have an oboist, a cellist, and somebody playing the French horn. They create a certain sound when playing together. If I then put in a cor anglais and a flute, okay, the sound that will be created will be different. And this is what I find quite interesting, because I come across people who have their pockets stuffed with crystals. Yeah? So they'll say, yeah, I've got amethyst in my pocket for spirituality, I've got rose quartz for self-love, I've got carnelian for vitality and stamina, let's say that I've got petersite for emotional calm, etc., etc. And they're kind of coming from the point of view that each single crystal in that pocket is giving them that vibration, which is true from a certain perspective. But from a different perspective, they're also creating a combined vibration from all the crystals that they've got in their pocket. And that is never factored in, yeah? Which is why I say to people, okay, if you are going to use 2 different crystal antidotes, don't put them in the same pocket. Have them in different parts of your body. And your body is quite capable of going, okay, these are different vibrations. But not if they're all in the same pocket. So if you 2 crystal antidotes, that's 6 stones. If you put them in different pockets, they are kept apart, and your body aura will be able to differentiate the different vibrations. If you put them all in the same pocket, then the 6 stones will mix and merge, and the 6 stones together becomes a different sort of vibration, a different combined vibration. And you don't always know whether that vibration is what you need. I doubt it will be harmful, but it may not be as beneficial for you as you would like. So that's something to consider. But like I said, if you've got a crystal antidote in your pocket, it will work. If you've got 2, keep them in different pockets. And then the only other thing is to cleanse them on a regular basis. So to be to ensure that the vibration of the crystals are kept at a peak condition. Because the thing about it is that if you're using crystals in your own particular aura, or it's been used by somebody else and you're using them in yours, they will have picked up psychic debris, let's say, which just deadens their vibration. So by cleansing them, and we gave you the simplest cleansing process earlier, which is under cold water for a minute, you're bringing them back into peak vibrational state. Yeah. So the pocket process, or the bra process if you want to go with Judy Hall, is the simplest way of working with crystals. Another way, and if you're working with the chakras, then just placing the 3 of them over the chakra in question, which is similar to your pocket because they're being in your aura. But if you have a particular chakra antidote that you want to use, being able to just hold it over the chakra in question or near the chakra in question allows the vibration to access the key point in your subtle anatomy. So let us say we've talked about fear, we've talked about worry and anxiety. Both of those are base chakras. So basically having the crystals located around your base chakra somewhere that's convenient is a good way to get that vibration in. Guilt, surprise, surprise, is much more of a sacral sacral chakra. So just holding them over the lower chakra, sacral chakra, allows the energy to access that point very easily. Okay? Now, when we come on to meridians, when I first taught it, I did actually suggest to people that they could put the 3 stones for a meridian issue on the first 3 points of the meridian. And it does work, and in extreme cases it is a good thing to do, but they kind of have to be quite extreme where the energy is really sluggish. And for most people I don't suggest you do that anymore, because it can be a very direct, yeah, and unless you're working with somebody and you have a very good diagnostic tool like muscle testing or dowsing, I would always suggest you don't do that unless you know that is exactly what's best for that client and it's exactly the right entry into their energy system. If you don't know that, then just having it in the pockets, or the next one which we'll talk about, is a much more gentler way of working with it. It's sort of like, how can I put this? It's a bit like if you have it in their aura, as we'll discuss, or in their pocket, the body is kind of like in control of how it takes the vibration into its energy system. If you input the vibration through the start of the meridian, it's a very, very direct way of working energetically. And unless that body really wants it that way, it can be very overwhelming. So I don't suggest that people do it unless it comes up as something that really needs to be done. But there is another way that I suggest. Now, there is a disadvantage with this, is because it uses 2 of the same stones for any of the antidotes. So, for example, let's say if it was guilt, it would be 2 Chararites, 2 Malachites, and 2 Citrines. Okay, so the downside is you've got to have more stones. The positive side is that you're doing it through the aura as a seal of Solomon, and it can be really relaxing and beneficial. You know, it creates a really great overall energy. So what you would do is you would sort of like create 2 triangles with, if we're using guilt, say, so you'd have 2 triangles with the Chararites opposite, with the Citrines opposite, and with the Malachites opposite. Okay, and like I said, it's in the aura. Once again, the body can decide how it integrates that vibration, and while you're there, it's a very relaxing space. So that's actually what I suggest to people now. If you need to go out and about, put them in your pocket. Sometimes it's probably best to put it in a little bag. And if you're wanting to do it at home, in a session, on yourself, then do it as a seal of Solomon, or Star of David. It's the 6-pointed star with the crystals around. If you don't have 2 crystals of each, then like I said, placing the stones on a chakra are effective, and if it's more of a meridian issue, place it on the navel, because the navel has pulse points around it which link to all of the meridians. So if I'm suggesting that you don't place it at the start of a meridian, but you do want to work with a meridian energy, then the best place on the body is your 3 stones is to be placed on the navel, and the body will be able to take the vibration in very easily and integrate it. Now, since working and discovering the meridian antidotes and the chakra antidotes, I've gone on to discover lots of other because there are other sort of limitations. For example, the invisibility antidotes. These are antidotes where somebody's actually switched off a part of their energy field so that they've made themselves invisible. Yeah, which, if you're Harry Potter, is really cool because you've got your cloak of invisibility. It allows you to wander around Hogwarts unseen at night as you go on your adventures and your quests. However, in the real world, yes, it is possible to switch your aura off, so you literally become invisible. And being invisible, people can't find you and people can't hurt you. But there are times when you want to switch yourself back on and be visible. So, for example, if you're going to stand up in front of a crowd and sell your new product or the new book that you've written or whatever, or you want to advertise your services, you want to be visible. So making yourself invisible means you've also made all your products and your services invisible. So the antidotes to switch your aura on to become visible, that they've come in recently. Self-sabotaging antidotes. So they're where I'm thinking of the best way to describe this. Let's talk plumbing. Okay, so if you're going to the roof of any house, you'll find a water tank, and the water will go up to a certain level, but to avoid flooding, there'll be like a runoff pipe. Yeah? So it'll fill, but if there's a problem, it can run off the water pipe. So that means that the water tank will never overflow, and you'll never have a flood in your house because the water's flooding out. Okay, that's the theory. That's what they do in plumbing. And in our subtle anatomies, we also have a similar setup, so that we can't get overloaded with too much energy in a particular area. But we can also, or at least our unconscious can also, define where the runoff level is. So if you are avoiding an issue, or you've instructed your unconscious to avoid an issue, then you can actually have the runoff being quite low, so the energy never rises big enough, strong enough to actually allow you to manifest a situation, because the energy is always running off in a particular chakra. And this is what I call self-sabotage, because you say you want something, you would say you want love, but you never allow your internal love energies to rise to a certain level that you become attractive to love. And this is what I call self-sabotage. In a sense, you've installed a fuse that blows whenever there's a chance that the very thing that you want comes near you. So self-sabotage antidotes are really interesting. So like I said, and another one, for example, the extraordinary vessels, which lie underneath the meridians, they have antidotes as well. So there's a lot of antidotes that we've mapped out in the last 10 to 15 years. And like I said, Sue Lilly and recently Sue Keeping have helped me to check them, make sure they do what they say, and my students have been also working with them. So kind of like, it's got to the point where the crystal antidotes, we know they work, we know they're effective. And like I said, the fact that they're easy to get hold of is a really cool thing. So, today we're putting out into the public domain a couple of antidotes, and really cool antidotes for you to work with. Oh, before we do that, just one other thing. Yes, and the other advantage is that the crystal antidotes, because they have a crystalline energy, it's really easy to turn them into audio essences. So that's another way which we can make the vibration available to people. And I'll be releasing quite a few of the audio essences for the antidotes over the next year. But if you want to work with them as sound audio essences, then the webinar that I did earlier in the week is the practical webinar with audio essences, contains useful ones, and also the one Day 4, money, 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 mostly not funny if you haven't got any. And that contains the worry anxiety antidote and also desperate need antidote. and there's information in those to explain how to work with them and etc. Now, if you want to work with them directly as crystals, on the web page you have information for the fear antidote. You have information on the worry anxiety antidote, the guilt antidote, and another one which I'm going to throw in, which comes once again from Dorothy Roeder, which isn't so much an antidote, but it's a really cool combination energy, which she calls releasing blocks and resistances, which is amethyst, sodalite, malachite, and rose quartz, which, when it comes together, it creates an energy that is very effective at releasing any blocks. Okay, it may not be the fastest acting crystal vibration out there, but if you don't know what else to do or use, you don't know what the issue is, then this one is a very effective one, because there'll be something that it can do. Yeah. So if you're ever stumped, this is a good one to work with, because something in there is working. And also, what I find very interesting about that one is, if you go back into the books written by Dale Walker, one of the things that he always said is that for the physical body you've got green, i.e. malachite. For the emotional body you've got pink, which is your rose quartz. For the mental body you've got dark blue or indigo, which is your sodalite. And for the spiritual side of humanity, or the human individual, you've got purple or violet, which is your amethyst. Yeah. So what I like about that particular combination, which also once again comes from Dorothy Roeder, it's not mine, it's not one I discovered, it's sourced from her book, is that a lot of our limitations, they are an entanglement of different level of our beings. So if we have an issue, there is a mental component, i.e. we're holding on to a thought. There is an emotional component, i.e. we're holding on to a limiting emotion. It's kind of entangled in our physical body in some area, and there might even be a spiritual component. But working with these four stones in combination kind of helps to untangle the knot that is our limitation, that is our issue, but from different perspectives, from the emotional, the physical, the mental and the spiritual. So there will be a JPEG to just show you those four stones on that particular web page. So if you're listening to this now, the web page is there. Okay, so coming to the conclusion of this particular webinar today, working with crystal antidotes. What do I want to finish with? What have crystal antidotes taught me since they came into my life? Well, it's probably this, that we're not as stuck or as limited as we may think or we may have been taught. Now, true, we're human beings, we are limited, we can't sort of like suddenly turn ourselves into Superman, and we have a personality, and while we are incarnate in this body, in this personality self, this is who we are, this is who we're exploring for this lifetime. And as Sue Lilly would say, we're learning to use or play the cards we've been given. It's like we've been dealt a hand, and we've been given certain cards in our hand, and that particular hand of cards has certain strengths and weaknesses. And therefore what we're doing as individuals is learning to play our strengths, while at the same time overcome, transform our weaknesses, our limitations, and turn them into strengths. Which reminds me of a story that I love from the life of Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee once confessed to one of his students that he had one leg shorter than the other. I think it was the left leg was shorter than the right leg. And the student will say, but how can you be such a great martial artist? Because he was one of the great martial artists that has ever lived, certainly the best known, and he was also a great fighter. In the martial arts tournaments, he won an awful lot, and the student couldn't understand why he was so successful when he had one leg shorter than the other. And Bruce Lee explained that yes, for certain martial arts moves, this was a disadvantage. But then he said, but for other martial arts techniques and moves, it was a distinct advantage. Having one leg a little bit longer than the other meant that with certain kicks and certain motions, he was able to gain greater momentum. So therefore, he had greater power and he has greater effectiveness. So a point came in his life where he thought, okay, I'm going to focus on being a master on those techniques that play to my physical strengths, as opposed to try to focus and integrate those where he is a distinct disadvantage. So it's all about learning to know who you are, playing to your strengths, while transforming your weaknesses, or finding a way that the weakness just isn't a weakness because it just isn't part of the game plan anymore. And what I've found with crystal antidotes is they are so cool and effective at taking a negative energy and transforming it into a positive. And once that happens, once you've shifted, you're not limited, you're not being held back, because the emotions are what motivate us. It's the emotions that are, in a sense, the source of our life. For example, as the great mythologist Joseph Campbell said, we're not looking for an answer to life. We're not looking for a meaning to life. What we're actually looking for is a feeling that will give life meaning. And usually it is the limiting emotions such as anger, fear, hate, which, although appropriate for certain situations, they dampen down life. They suck the joy out of life. They make life grey. So, as I say, fear might be an interesting place to visit, but you don't want to live there 24/7. There are times when it's appropriate, but you don't want to be stuck living a life of fear. You don't want to be stuck living a life of anger. You don't want to be stuck living a life of regret. And the thing that I really love about the crystal antidotes is they give people a way to transform the negative into the positive. And once it's been done once, you know it's possible. And you know you can do it again and again whenever you need. Okay? So, that's it for today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining me. In the next two, we'll be inviting Lang Stokes, my friend from Australia, to come in to share his knowledge. And then on the 5th of January, day 11, it will be Sue Lilly discussing personal energy management, which is also going to be really cool. So I suggest that you make a note to, for the next couple of days, Lang, and then Sue. Okay? And then Lang will be bringing the whole of our 12 vibrational days to an end with a really cool online meditation for us all. So I hope there was something in that webinar that I've just recorded that has been useful for you. And as we are starting 2017, I wish for you, I hope, many blessings, prosperity and love in your life in the coming year. Thank you very much for joining.